Okay, let's get started. And a very warm welcome. This is the 38th Security Thought Leadership webinar. We've been here every Tuesday and Thursday since the crisis started, debating a topic that is of direct relevance to the security world. And what's key, I think, is that what we need to do today is debate and critique what is going on in order that we may have a better type of security in the future. Indeed, that's the idea of thought leadership. That's the idea of beginning to think differently about what's going on and learning from the experience. Once again today, we're going to be doing a topic that is right at the heart of security practice. We're going to be looking at the role of security installers and integrators in a post-COVID-19 world. What next? And from previous webinars, what we know is that some are arguing this has changed the world dramatically for the better, in the sense that security has been shown up to be important. It's now up to security installers and integrators to milk that opportunity. And others saying, be careful, an economic recession or hardship's coming, and in those circumstances, security gets back in its box. We'll see what our four expert panelists have got to say on these issues. In a minute, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. We have two from the United Kingdom, one from the United States, and one from Australia, all involved in different ways in this subject area. Once all four of them have introduced themselves, I'll then ask them for their opening statement, and then we'll come to you, the audience, for your questions. So please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen and get your questions in early, and I'll endeavour to incorporate them into the discussion. So without further ado, let's go ahead, let's get our introductions done. First of all, let's go to Richard. Richard in the United Kingdom.
Hello there, Martin. Richard Jenkins. I'm the Chief Executive at the National Security Inspectorate. We're based about 20 miles out of the centre of London, and we deliver certification services across the whole gambit of the security industry delivery partners in the UK.
Thank you very much indeed. And from United Kingdom over to New York. And Joe.
Good morning. Thank you, Martin. My name is Joe Mashucco. I'm the president of SI Technologies, which is a convergent technologies company, and I'm an active volunteer within ASIS.
Joe, thank you very much indeed. And from the United States over to Australia. Just a point, I'm going to introduce John, but his video is upside down.
I know, I've got my head twisted around.
Yourself.
I'm normal on this end, but hello, good day to everybody. I'm the General Manager of the Australian Security Industry Association, and I'm based here in Sydney, Australia. Thank you, Martin.
John, thank you very much indeed. And finally, Graham.
Hi, everyone. I'm from CSL. We're very proud sponsors of this webinar. CSL is a specialist in the secure signalling and management services in the security and the M2M world, and I'm the international director.
Thank you very much indeed, Graham. Well, we're grateful to have CSL as a sponsor and you as a panelist. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, I'm now going to go to each of our panelists, opening statement, 3 minutes each, to say what they believe about this topic area. Let's go first to Richard. Richard, your opening statement, please.
Yeah, just for those who may be not so familiar, the NSI is a certification body in the UK, and we deliver inspectorate or inspection services to around 1,800 companies here in the UK operating in the sector. We work very closely with the authorities, the National Police Chiefs Council here in UK, and also the Security Industry Authority, and liaise with them in delivering the services we do. Of course, there are really two dimensions to the rationale for using a certification body. One is to create a hallmark of recognition amongst buyers, or utilize a hallmark of recognition amongst buyers. And the other one, particularly for SMEs coming into the industry or growing in the industry, looking for some guidance that they're keeping on track with respect to standards as they exist. And in particular, as standards evolve, which they're evolving and they're evolving all the time, ensuring that they're keeping up to speed with those. We have seen, as we've had some shocks here in the UK, a little bit later than some parts of Europe, and a little bit ahead of the US, but the economy pretty much came to a grinding halt at the end of March, probably down to about 50% of its activity, possibly in some commentators' minds less. And here in our particular business, we basically shut down our field operations for 2 months, took a breath, and then regrouped. So that back at this point on the calendar, we are now pretty much back to whatever as near to the new normal as we could have imagined at this state in the game.
Yep. You done, Joe? Richard?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed, Richard. Joe, let's go to you and your opening statement, please, Joe.
Thank you, Martin. So SI Technologies, which is now a Convergent Technologies company, we're systems integrators. So we provide access control, closed circuit video, design services, etc. And our role has always been, help our clients provide safe and secure workplaces, which of course in kind helps us provide safer and more secure communities. So it's good work. COVID has not changed that. Our goal is still to help our clients provide a safe and secure workplace. Now we have the added dimension of the need to live with COVID on a fairly permanent basis. Regardless of what the vaccines may or may not do, there'll always be a large portion of the population that will refuse vaccinations for whatever reason, political, religious, what have you. We're still going to have to allow those people to come to work. Further, we're going to have to do contact tracing and things along those lines. So what we're developing are plans to help our customers continue to provide that safe and secure workplace with moving people around, installing partitions, frictionless access control, automatic door openers, things along those lines are going to be more commonplace. But in the end, our goals are still the same: help our customers provide a safe and secure workplace for their staff, their visitors, and their customers.
Joe, thank you very much indeed. Let's go down to Sydney, Australia then. John.
Great, thanks, Martin. Well, really to your question about technology failure, I thought, first of all, technology on its own is not the issue. It's how the systems are designed, installed and commissioned, basically to meet their stated risk objectives. That's the issue. The threats to the premises should be identified and assessed, and the operational requirements should clearly cover the customer's expectation of the security systems. But due to COVID-19, failure of maintenance of the security systems, I believe, will be a bigger problem, potentially and maybe unintentionally compromising the building security systems, which will provide opportunities for criminals and put the public safety at risk. So building owners will be accountable, I believe, for issues, particularly insurance claims, if maintenance of security systems are neglected. Further risk and reputational damage if the buildings are deemed unsafe for the tenants and for the public. So building occupancy levels here in Australia, and I'm sure around the world, are low at the moment. So it's a great time to enact maintenance plans and the upgrading of systems if the client's budget allows. A number of government projects here have been brought forward basically to accommodate this and to provide work in the markets. But the bottom line is there needs to be a duty of care for building management. So building owners and facility management companies will need to ensure that the workplaces are as safe as possible in these difficult times. So the work health and safety aspects for the installers and integrators will need to be paramount to make sure they've got training and hygiene practices that will need to be followed to support them, not only for their own health, but the people they come in contact with when they're performing their duties. A lot of staff are now, as you all know, working from home. So contact tracing, where these guys attend sites, workflow management systems will be really important for the installers and the integrators. And in the event of a virus contamination, contact tracing will be critical for the installers at all the sites they may have attended. Communications from their employers in these difficult times also needs to be managed well, including mental health checks. There's an elevated level of stress and aggression in the world, and we are not out of the woods yet. So COVID-19, I believe, has created the time, space, and the necessity for security businesses to focus on digital tools and the technology. The accelerated adoption of the digital world and the technologies that are now increasingly online. So installers and integrators will need to really keep pace with training and especially IT networks and cybersecurity. Thank you, Martin.
John, thank you very much indeed. Interesting comments. We'll come back to those, I'm sure. Can I just say to the audience, if you've got questions, can you please use the question answer button at the bottom of your screen? If you get your questions in early, I'll endeavour to incorporate them. And let's go to our final opening statement from Graham. Graham, yours, please.
Hi, yeah. The briefing I got from Martin was obviously what will be the role of installers and integrators post-COVID. And like so many other areas of our lives, COVID is creating the need for installers and integrators to adapt in such unprecedented times. I think they need to consider viable and practical options to provide an efficient service to their clients, such as being more aligned with remote access tools. I think the use of apps and tablets and dashboards and browser-based remote services will need to be the norm rather than sexy additional tools. Manufacturers of intruder, fire, CCTV and access systems all provide such tools today, but currently the percentage of installations using those remote service tools is still very, very low. A post-COVID world seems a long way off. As Joe was saying, we're going to have to learn to live with this. However, installers and integrators will need to overcome their fear of exposing both themselves and their customers to a more remote control world. I think from my experience in the supply of electronic security systems and signaling services over the last 30 plus years, as you can see, the advance of the technology has been immense, but I think the uptake has been slow in the use of the product functionalities that are designed to ease the burden for the installer. And I think that's based on the fear of extra responsibility and potential service calls from end user. But I think it's time now to adapt to this. I think going forward, we will have to change to the new normal of restrictive and more cautious access to sites. I think John just touched on that. It will mean more along the lines of remote diagnostics and more services being conducted on a remote level. I think Joe in his business is already in that area. Also, there's a question of the commercial opportunities versus clients who will now have smaller budgets in this economic downturn. So that means that upgrades of existing installations, normally installers would fit a brand new system, they may need to adapt and move an analog system to digital by the comms devices. It's a world that CSL is familiar with because we're a signaling house and we provide such tools. And I think that's going to be an area of where the installers and integrators will need to adjust. Finally, with all crisis comes opportunity. There will be new emerging markets for installers and integrators to consider post-COVID. And to me, that is going to be the remote access care for the elderly. Products are available in the intruder world today that have been adapted to provide family members with the ability to connect remotely to elderly parents' homes via apps, where they can have a two-way voice and data communication to allow regular checks for their health and well-being. That's going to be a huge opportunity. So a sense of opportunity coming out of crisis, and I think the installers and integrators can take a good look at that as a new means of revenue. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, Graham. I think we'll come to opportunities about this since some of you have mentioned this. Let's go to questions, and I'm going to come first to you, Joe, and secondly to you, Graham. Godfried Hendricks, who's been on a panelist himself, is asking a question about cyber attacks on the physical security systems. We've been hearing a lot about this, actually, and you could be forgiven for believing it's not been as bad as many people thought. I wonder whether with people working from home, Joe, and in a way, the world being a little bit unsettled, this has theoretically been great for offenders. Have you seen a greater risk, and are there likely to be greater risks in this context going forward? Joe first, and I'll come to Graham. Joe.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that the risks are elevated with more staff interacting with the office systems, databases, various servers, etc., from remote devices that we're all using. It's not like we all sit in our home office with a, on a secure Wi-Fi all the time. Sometimes perhaps we're in the field and need to access, some of the systems, and we'll use our iPhones or our iPads or our Android devices. So from the IT perspective, ensuring that those firewalls are intelligent and secure is perhaps even more important today than it was pre-COVID.
And do you think, Joe, in this context, speaking from your experience, that has been a big message to those working from home? It almost seems in some way. Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, in our organization, we have a team whose full-time job is to reinforce how to recognize a phishing email. And they will send out test messages. And if you click the open, boom, you get your wrist slap. Hey, that was phishing. That sort of thing. So a proactive role by the IT departments to continuously. Just the other day, I opened up something I shouldn't have opened, and I certainly do know better, don't I, folks? It's a continuous education because people will backslide, and we've made a big investment in that in our organization. Because here in the States, we have had many breaches that were due to contractors. I think one of the biggest ones was a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning contractor that their systems were poor, and the bad guys used them as the back door to get into the organization. So reinforcing that sort of thing is even more important where everybody now is dialing in.
Thank you. Graham, I'll come to you next. I mean, clearly important, is clearly a greater risk, as Joe says. Do you sense there is a response, and do you think that the world of, and I'm interested in integration stores specifically here, are on the ball about this?
Yeah, I think they're becoming more and more aware as the remote access world increases that certain clients, Richard will be aware through the NSI that communication for the installations of alarm systems, fire systems, and so on, they can be compromised, and managed services, managed connectivity is a crucial element to making sure that these they're not exposed to such attacks. It's an area, obviously, without advertising CSL as a business, it's an area where we specialize and provide our clients with cyber safe connectivity, managed services. And as I say, remote access is going to be more prevalent in these systems post-COVID, and alarm installers, electronic security integrators will obviously need to be managing their connectivity in a cyber safe world. The risk of attack is growing, so the requirement for resilience is higher.
Okay, thank you. Very quick comment from Richard and John on this. Richard, are you seeing your companies being responsive to this risk in a proactive and progressive way?
Well, okay, it's not a completely simple single answer, is it? There is clearly growing awareness, and there has been awareness growing for some time. We've been working with the BSIA, the trade association here in UK, around a cyber secure code of practice for installers, which coincidentally was published just this morning by the trade association here in UK. And it's our intent to deliver that as an optional scope within the certification schemes that we offer, probably from early 2021. So the important thing about this is that whether you're a domestic user of a system that's hooked into a network, your home network, or whether you're a small or larger business, network threats that have been described earlier by Joe, I think, are clearly here to stay. And the innocent installer rocking up and putting in an intruder alarm system for somebody can inadvertently make some fundamental errors if they're not well trained. So this is a growing, a widening issue. More and more threats. I myself was hacked just a couple of months ago as well, Joe. So it took me about 2 days to get back on track, and it's a completely innocent phishing scam. I think not quite sure, but no, seriously, the training of installers to ensure that the hardware available is configured in the right way is, if you like, it's the weak link in the chain. But if you like, it's where the added value can be delivered by that installation community, be they integrators or more straightforward installers in the field, and that's been our focus, and it's for sure not going away with the present crisis.
Yeah, I mean, John, I mean, this weak link bit is a big deal, isn't it? Because we've been hearing a bit about systems being hacked precisely because some installers are leaving that option open, as was just said in a different context. I mean, no one doubts that the people on this panel are on the ball, right? That's why you're on a thought leadership global webinar. But it's about dealing with this quite large but extremely influential sector, which has got a small proportion having a big impact, leaving these risks open. How do you deal with that, John?
I agree with all the other panelists. It's a massive issue, and it's growing even more and more due to the work from home arrangements that we've got. So internally, from an ASIL, Australian Industry Association, we've put in obviously firewalls, we've got mail guard systems in, we've got two-factor authentication. So we've done as much as we can, but the next level is actually getting out there to the alarm installer integrator. And I know from an Australian point of view, they're all at different levels. So we actually put a certification program in place for IT management and basic cyber security. But I think it's another issue that's growing with the market and will not be dropped anytime soon. So we need the training in place for these alarm installers, definitely.
Thing is, John, and I say this to John and Richard actually, appreciate you've got training in place. Richard, appreciate you got this standard announced today. But how do you make sure those who need to take it up will take it up? Because I suspect the sort of the Joes and Grahams of this world won't need much persuading if they're not doing it already. But of course, they're not the problem in a sense. How do you, providing it is one thing, influencing the world of practice is quite another, John?
Very difficult, Martin. You hit the nail on the head there. So we can put out all the information we can. We can work with all the training organisations to develop materials, but really it's the employers that need to grab this information. They need to push this down the chain. They need to get their technicians trained, and they need to make sure that when their technicians go out on site, they actually do the job first time the right way. But unless the employers get on board and pay money to have these people trained, it won't go anywhere.
Okay, and Richard, same question to you. It's your thoughts.
Well, yeah, it's a difficult one, because what you need to, one way of looking at it is to drive awareness within the end user community. Yeah, so who is the end user, and does the end user understand that the integrator or installer they're employing is actually capable and qualified to play on their network, or do they realize they're on their network at all in the first place? So there's certainly the education of the installer and the industry community, but which is one part of the equation, but driving informed opinion amongst the end users and buyers is really, really up there in my view.
Okay. Joe, we're going to come to you with this question. It's a question from Glenn Kittringham, and it's an interesting one actually, because when you look around the security world, in the world of thought leadership, you know, look at people in senior positions in the wider influence of the sector. One of the questions, or point Glenn makes, is that installers, integrators haven't been there as much as perhaps as they could have been. I mean, you are, Joe, so it's a question to sort of ask you. Would you agree that installers and integrators haven't been in leadership positions to the same extent of other parts of the industry? And if not, why not? And how could we get more? Because it seems to be a world that's not quite there at the top seat. Would you agree, Joe?
Well, of course, Martin, I can really only speak to the U.S. market. you know, and you know the systems installation business in the U.S. market is really fragmented. You know, you've got some really fine integrators that have made big investments in education and training and certification of their sales staff, of their project management staff, and then most importantly, to the guys that are actually turning the screws in the field and locking down the devices from a cyber attack point of view. Then you have the next level down, which are, we like to call them trunk slammers in the States. So these are guys that, you know, they've got a valid Visa card, so they can go to ADI and they can buy a Vista panel and they can go install it. They don't care at all about taking the extra 5 minutes to lock that panel down because they want to get on to the next job, and that's all they care about. So what we see is companies that are making this investment is the key differentiator between we and they. You know, when a customer comes into us and says, you know, your price is too high, we can buy it blah 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 for 30% less, you know, our differentiator is, yeah, but what investment have they made in educating and certifying their people to help prevent cyber attacks to your organization through the equipment we install and the remote access we may have to that system. So it's a key differentiator, and the customers that appreciate that differentiation will only do business with companies as such. But the market is still filled with price point, low-end products, low-end installers. And that's a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. And I guess to a large extent, we've had conversations on similar line in the man guarding world. That word's now being changed. We're trying, some parts of the sector are trying to get away from it. Graham, I guess you would relate to that. That would seem a problem in your world too.
Yeah, I think part of the issue for the installation, and it's a very good question by the way from Glenn, but the issue for installers, and Joe's right, there are different, it's no different in Europe, Joe. We have large, very structured and organized installation companies, national and international. And then we have regional and smaller companies. But I think that they perhaps they don't have a voice at the top table of decision making in the way the industry is structured or should go forward. Mainly because I think they have to be customer focused. It's quite a complex world in their installation, servicing. They have to meet a number of guidelines with the bodies such as Richard's bodies. And also I think there is I wouldn't call it an apathy, but maybe they feel that they don't get heard or recognized. But in my view, they're so focused on their customer based their customer base and trying to develop the business in an extremely competitive market that I don't think they have given it the level of attention that perhaps it should have, because their voice, in my opinion, is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting question for Ned. John, you're well placed on this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, from an Australian perspective, I go back to one of the key issues is with the security industry, it's not deemed a trade. So if you're an electrician, you do 4 years at college and you come out with an electrical certificate. A lot of the security industry people just get into, running cables, ducting, fitting panels off, and they learn on the job. They don't actually go to college or technical college at all. So they grow with a base level of knowledge. And when you do the jump now into the IT world, some of these guys are getting left behind. There are some fantastic integrators out there who are well adapted, but there's a whole cohort behind them that have got limited knowledge and limited education credentials. And I think they're going to find the gap is even harder to jump, because now you've got IT companies coming into the market, and now some electrical companies are realizing the opportunity of getting away from just doing lighting and PowerPoints. There's an opportunity to do home automation, which includes security systems, and they've got the base foundational knowledge to actually build upon. So that's what we're trying to do here, is get the technicians to actually do training and get certification. So being a trade.
Thanks, John. Let me bring Richard in. Richard, I want this point about, and it's really matters, I think, because installers and integrators, okay, often haven't been at that high table, and I mean, and there's no logical reason objectively why that should be the case. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure it's completely true that they're not at the high table on certain key topics. So in the UK, I mean, a lot of what John's been saying, although he's sitting down under on a strange projector there, but a lot of what he's been saying, if you took the accent away and put him back in his domestic home, his place of origin, you could say that plays exactly in the UK. It plays exactly in the UK. And the focus on the trade bodies have had in terms of trying to beat the drum with government about recognised training qualifications for installers, installers of security and fire systems. You know, it's been going on for a long time, and it's only with the momentum of certain key players. And in the UK recently, there's been a new code for training of individuals just formalized in the last 6 months, and that's been born out of the industry doing its own thing. It's been born out of a bunch of guys in a couple of trade associations saying, no, we're not going to wait any longer. We're going to take the bull by the horns. So, but John, you're right. You know, it takes a lot of commitment, a lot of time, a lot of debate and argument in order to get these things crystallized. But in a sense, the industry has to help itself.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me move on. And Conrad Weinert, I hope I pronounced that right. Excuse me if I haven't, Conrad, makes a point about contract tracing. I just want to mention this because clearly what you have, and I'll come to Graham first on this. Graham, you've got staff going out and into public life, into buildings, into different settings. And clearly there are risks there. And I wonder whether how easy it is for you to ensure your staff are looked over and therefore your customers are looked after, and whether there are risks on them and therefore you that's going to make the job all the more difficult going forward.
Are you talking about the new normal and new restrictions?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the idea we've got to keep social distancing, the idea, I mean, when they go into, I mean, in the UK, just for example, we just had a few increases. We'll come to Joe in a minute, and it seems in America it's quite dramatic. But there are risks in engaging at the sharp end. There are risks in people going out into community and meeting others. And I just wonder whether you've faced any sort of concerns about this from your staff or from your managers about that sort of proactive engagement at the sharp end.
Yeah.
Graham.
CSL has some very strict HR policies in place to protect, first of all, the staff and the team that we're responsible for. And we share ideas with them. Some of our field-based technical and commercial staff are making visits as long as it's done with the correct processes in place. There is concern, there is still a level of caution, of course. Going forward, I think it gets back to that word adapt, Martin. We're going to have to adapt because we do have to move on. We have to move on from this, and there will be a level of caution, obviously, but for sure, CSL do follow strict HR guidelines. We've got very attentive staff. Very, very structured and organised, and we expect that things will move forward safely as long as they are following the guidelines.
But there's the point, Graham. I just come back to you. I mean, it strikes me the easy bit is making sure that you've got policies and procedures in place. Yeah. I mean, that's a no-brainer, okay? And most good employers are going to have that. I'm talking about the real world of getting the job done at the sharp end. I mean, the real world, you know, that we all face. And Now, even in, you know, in our supermarket, where it's all quite structured. I mean, people are moving about because they're busy and they want to get on and they want to get out. People want to get home at the end of the day. That is more tricky, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But again, we've seen that we can survive in this environment. It's difficult, it's frustrating, but we can survive in this environment, Martin. And the installers and integrators who are going out there today, they're back out in the field, I know they are, where it is possible and where guidelines can be followed. So yeah, it's not an easy answer, is it? I think we've mentioned this throughout this webinar. There is no easy answer to this, but for sure we do have to move forward. We cannot be in a situation where business practices, installations, servicing, again, the remote facilities that we will offer will help. But of course, front end direct contact is going to be necessary.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me come to Joe, because Joe, we've been hearing over here some quite dramatic figures for the United States and some quite deep concerns. I'm interested specifically on how this affects the attitude towards business, Joe. When you've got to go into homes and premises and engage with people, your staff have. Joe.
You know, it's you hit the nail on the head, Martin, when you said that the easy part is to have HR write policies and procedures. Everybody downloads their Fit for Duty app, and we get up in the morning, we answer the 7 questions. I don't have the sniffles, I don't have a fever, I don't have a dry cough, I can still taste food. Click Fit for Duty. Okay, off I go. But what if I'm out of PTO days? We all know what PTO days are around the world, right?
No.
Personal time off. PTO is personal time off, okay? So what if I'm out of personal time off days and I've got the sniffles and maybe I don't feel great, but I'm sure it's not COVID. It's just a cold. So I still go to work because I'm out of PTO days. So there's an onus of responsibility on the individual, right? To decide, first of all, I'm going to be safe that day. And it's really no different than putting a ladder up against, a building or a pole. Am I following, the proper regulations? Am I 10 feet from a power line? Am I all those things? It's really the same issue. So what we've done is the Fit for Duty app and continuously reinforcing to our people, you've got to wear your mask, you've got to wear your gloves, you've got to wash your hands, you've got to do all those things. Fortunately, our customers are on top of it as well. So before we can send somebody in, one of our technical people, we have to show them that they are doing the Fit for Duty, that they have a track record, that we haven't had any COVID cases in the office, et cetera, just to be allowed on their premise. So we're taking a lot of good, proper precautions. To me, the black hole of problems is the individual's responsibility.
Joe, just one thing. Thank you for that. And I appreciate the point. Joe, is there a legal responsibility on you as an employer if one of your staff is negligent and spreads COVID-19 around their premises?
Well, here in the States, we are lawsuit happy people. We like to sue for everything under the sun. Will there be lawsuits based upon this? Absolutely. So every employer is taking every effort they can to mitigate any chance of them being negligent, because most certainly 18 months from now, the dockets will be filled with negligent COVID tracking cases throughout the US. No doubt in my mind.
Thank you. I'm going to come to Richard. Of course, you're sending your inspectors into premises all over the country, I guess. Are you concerned about the risk here, the risks that Joe spoke about?
So this is getting a little bit repetitive in the sense of agreement, but I'll just describe. So in the first, I think I mentioned earlier, but in the first 2 months for the UK, so pretty much from the start of April, we took a standout decision. I think from as far as I know, in the business that we're in that is certification and inspection, we're the only business that shut our operation for 2 months. We just said, we're going to bite this bullet. We're just going to stop, because companies are desperately trying to figure out whether or not they can visit a customer. Are they allowed to? Are they not? How are they going to do this key maintenance? How are they, are they going to, they're supposed, according to the standards that are in existence, make it a physical check, even if they've got remote technology, blah, 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 blah. So we just stopped and said, let everybody settle, let the dust settle, give people a chance to find how they want to operate during this protracted train crash that's going on. And then we're going to take a look at coming back. So just like well, I'm not quite sure, I could say I'd never heard of Zoom before the beginning of April, but it might be likely that I hadn't. I certainly hadn't heard of it a year ago. So we're using this technology to have this interaction today, which is now every day, as you said, 38 in a quarter as many weeks, or whatever it is. So we've adapted to have this dialogue. So we as a business have adapted by, if you like, speeding up our transition to remote audit, whereby we were probably doing 5 or 10% at tops 3-4 months ago. We're probably running at about 50-60% now. And where it's reasonable to make remote audit, we are making remote audit. So the first thing is we've adapted, to use the word that Graham put in there, pretty dramatically. And interestingly, most of our customers have welcomed it, have embraced it, and we're not using it as a rubber stamping shortcut. It's got value. But where it is necessary to physically visit a site, the good guys get it, don't they? They know what is reasonable, and they know where it's fair, and they know that if they don't have that rubber stamping, you might call it, then actually they're weakening their position in the market. So we are not going to put people at risk. We are giving our inspector the responsibility to make the judgment call, having done the training, to say, if you feel you are presented with a site which is unreasonable, you walk away. We will back you 100%. So and they've been in business, back on the roads since the beginning of June. We are now virtually at the end of July. I haven't had one inspector come to me telling me he's felt he's had to back out. Now, I also know that there are some very vulnerable guys amongst that group, and if they feel threatened, I can tell you they're going to back out. So,
Richard, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
I appreciate that. I'm going to move on quickly because we're running out. That was a different answer, a very good one. John, I want to come to you on this issue very briefly, if I might, John, because we're running out of time. How do you feel? How concerned are you about all the staff on both sides and the legal implications?
Absolutely, it's been a major problem, but we were lucky enough. We've had all the systems in place so we could get staff working from home. So for 3 months, everyone worked from home, and we only got people back in the office on the 1st of July, a few weeks ago. And then unfortunately for Australia, we've got an outburst now of new contact viruses. So now we've moved anybody that has access to the building through public transport, they have to stay at home. So only people, if you can drive in, avoid public transport, they're the only ones allowed in the office at the moment. And the visitors to the office, they're all curtailed. They have to sign a form online before they come in. Where have they been? Who have they been in contact with? Have they had an elevated temperature check? And then we only let them in the front door to the front reception area, not through the building. So it's locked down quite well.
John, thank you very much indeed. Let me just come to everyone for their final thoughts on this, please. Look, here we are, integrated stores. I hadn't heard a lot of that stuff before, by the way, just interesting. Let me just come to each of you, just if I could, in just 10 seconds, your key takeaway, the key message you'd like to communicate about installers and integrators and going forward into the new world. Richard, what's the big issue? Richard Jenkins.
Well, my point would be that the professional industry out there is showing willingness to adapt to the new environment and is actually wanting to get on with it, and is really all ears for governance to indicate what getting on with it means.
Thank you. Joe, your final comment, please. Just 10 seconds, Joe, if you wouldn't mind.
10 seconds.
Yeah.
We have to prepare to learn to live with COVID for the long haul. Richard, as you just said, we have to be in front of adapting our businesses so that we can live with it for years and years and years.
Thank you, Joe. John, your final comment, just 10 seconds, please.
Yeah, fully. I agree with all the excellent panelists we've had today. And the bottom line is every individual has to take personal responsibility.
And Graham, it seems only approaching the very last comment to you on your final thoughts, please, Graham.
As ever, opportunity comes out of adversity, and this will generate new business ideas and create new business for installers and integrators.
Thank you very much
We're here
indeed.
to help, Martin, CSL, communication.
Well said, Graham. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you to my panel for their views. Thank you to
Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. And thank you very much indeed to CSL for sponsoring this. The issues will continue, and I'm sure we'll revisit these at some future date. Just a quick reminder that when we're thinking about outstanding performance, the OSPA entries are open in certain parts of the world. US closes tomorrow. US people, please get your entries in. Benelux closes tomorrow. Romania closes next on the 3rd, and Kenya, Germany and UK, you've still got more time, but why not do it right now? And finally, just to say that we have been involved in these webinars every Tuesday and Thursday throughout this period, and we'll be here next Tuesday and Thursday. We go into August, and next Tuesday we're going to look at the thorny subject of dealing with violence, both violence on staff, which partly cropped up today, and violence in communities and what the implications are for security. And on Thursday, another theme that cropped up today, which Gottfried raised, and we'll be going into more detail. It's all about cybercrime now. Is this true? What role then for the non-cyber security sector? So do please join us on Tuesday and Thursday next week. Once again, thank you very much indeed to my panel. Thank you to you, the audience. And a little thank you to Hannah in the background who's been doing the technology. She's really important, more important than me. Ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world, until we meet again, stay safe.
Okay. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.